Guys, welcome back to Medical Coding with Blue. Today's episode is all about the number one book that I recommend for studying CPT, or current procedural terminology. If you're brand new to my channel, welcome. I am Blue. I'm a medical coder. Okay, guys, I am also going to give my breakdown of how to break up the study sessions for this book, okay? But I will get into it here in a second. First of all, this is not an ad for this book, for the organization that makes this book. It is not an ad. I am a medical coder that loves medical coding, and I want people to understand what they're doing. I often get emails from people saying that they're going through a program, that the books that they're using, they're very difficult to understand. They don't understand it. So what do I recommend? I recommended this book several times. I feel like I say it in almost every single episode. But the book that I recommend to learn CPT is the AAPC CPC Study Guide. Now, why do I recommend this book? Because AAPC actually got this book right. Now, I'm sure they have a lot of other materials that are really good too, but when it comes to learning medical coding and learning CPT, especially if you are having to augment your studies because maybe your program is a little fast-paced and you didn't realize what you were getting into until now, and you're like, oh my gosh, what do I do? You can use this book to help augment your studies. This book will also work if you are going to sit for the CCSP, the CCA, or the CCS. The CCS is the gold standard of medical coding credentials. It is the gold standard because it says that you have mastered inpatient and outpatient coding. That's why it's the gold standard. Other people talk about other credentials being the gold standard, but they don't stack up to the CCS. I'm just saying. So this book, even though it says CPC Study Guide, it will work to help you to study for the CPT side of the CCSP, the CCA, or the CCS. And these are all with the American Health Information Management Association. We all use the same CPT book. Just because AAPC wrote this doesn't mean that somebody who's sitting for an AHEMA exam can't use it to study with, okay? So I recommend it because this is the book that I used to help me to study back in 2021 when I took the CCSP exam. I took that one first. Now, I code in orthopedics and podiatry. That is primarily what I do. I've done a little bit of everything, but sometimes you forget, especially if you haven't done that particular clinic in quite a bit of time. So what I did was I got this book and I started working with it so that it could refresh my memory on some of the other specialties that I hadn't coded for in a while. And I have found that this book is fantastic when it comes to just being so straightforward and speaking in very plain language, okay? So that is the best part about it. Now, again, I will leave the link for this particular book in the description box below. I will tell you that on the Amazon website, it is $148.99. You can get it used from $126.32, okay? Now, the 2019 version that I recommend is a ridiculous price now. I don't even want to recommend that one. But even if you get a 2022 version, that's okay, because even though there have been updates to the codes, I mean, you can still answer the questions, and you'll know if your code that you're looking up, if you have the 2022 version and you're working with the 2023 books and you're just using this book to help you to study with, and you notice that their answer is not in your book, that means that that code has been updated, or there's been a new code added, or it's been deleted, or something happened, okay? So that's how you know that there's been a few updates. But again, if you get the 2023 book, you can certainly do that. You have that choice. But again, I will leave that in the description box below. Now, there are 18 chapters that you really need to go through. There's 20 total chapters in this book, but you can use the 18 chapters because it'll go all the way through all the chapters, and then it ends at the medicine chapter, okay? And then, of course, you have your prepping, your exam prep practice test, right? So you have those. But what I would recommend is this. Take this book and the 18 chapters that you need to work on in this book over 4 months' time. Yes, I said 4 months. Now, the reason that I say 4 months and not less time is because you can be doing this in conjunction with your ICD-10-CM, okay? If you don't want to do that and you want to do it separately, that's totally fine too. You can study the ICD-10-CM separately, but what I'm going to suggest to you is that if you are studying the CPT side, okay, and you need to really work on that, you spread it out over 4 months, all right? If you want to go less time, that's up to you. But as a veteran coder, I'm telling you now, it is a lot. And then I'm the one who gets people telling me, I didn't know it was this much. I'm trying to warn you ahead of time that it is a lot. And it doesn't matter if you've been a nurse. It doesn't matter if you've been a surgical tech. It doesn't matter any of those things. Even if you're a foreign trained doctor, it does not matter. When it comes to coding is a whole different ball field, guys. And you have to take it seriously or it will humble you fast, okay? I'm just saying. So if we look at this first chapter here, right? And the first chapter is going to be about the business of medicine. But when we get into chapter 2, there's going to be medical terminology and anatomy review. So even though it's going to gloss over a lot of things, it's just to kind of get that primer going for your brain, okay? And so you want to use this time to be able to go over this stuff. If you're able to do more than one chapter in a week, that is totally fine. You can do two chapters in a week if you want to. You can do 3 if you're really pedal to the metal and you're not working on anything else and you want to concentrate on CPT, you could totally do that. But what I recommend is taking 1 chapter per week, so that way you can really let that stuff soak in. But again, there's going to be some chapters that are shorter than others, and there's going to be some chapters that are going to take more time than others. But you don't have to stick to it. But this is just to give you an idea. You want to take 4 months, and then you can do a chapter per week. So you still have 2 chapters that you need to make up anywhere in between there. So like I said, you can totally double up a week, take 2 chapters in that week. If you know that that's a chapter that's going to be a little bit easier for you to understand and you're getting through it pretty well, you could combine those 2. That is totally fine. But you want to make sure that you go through all the book, to go through the whole book. So that way, you've touched on every single chapter. This is imperative because you don't know what is on that test, number 1. Number 2, even though you may not feel strong in that subject, if you can get strong in the other subjects, that's what it will carry you, okay? And that'll give you time to work with the book and learn to work with the book, okay? So what I'm saying is this. Some of these chapters are a little bit longer, but some of them are a little bit shorter. And so what you want to do is when you're working with your books and you have all of your books out, when you start at the first chapter, and let's go to chapter 2. We're going to pass that introduction section there. Introduction to ICD-10-CM, CPT. Where are we at? This is musculoskeletal already. I want to go to the integumentary system. So, no, I want to go medical terminology. Where is it? Okay, well, you know what? We're going to start with integumentary system. So, if you go to the chapter 5, right? We're just going to want to jump to chapter 5 because I want y'all to see, all right? Look at the end of the chapter if you have the book, right? Look at the end of the chapter and you see the chapter review questions. Before you start reading the chapter, read the chapter review questions first. What this is going to do is going to put this in your brain. This is what you're looking for while you're studying. All right? So you're going to go over all of those questions. They're multiple choice, yes. But then you keep looking and then you'll see it starts asking you coding questions and then it'll get to the op notes section. So the op notes don't have multiple choice on them. So I know that can be a little scary sometimes, but the answer key is in the book, okay? And it's got all the answers and some of the rationale and stuff like that. So you want to be able to say, okay, well, I have all of these and I'm going to look at these questions first before I go into the chapter. And that's how you start to learn, because then you can set yourself up for success that way, because your brain's going to be on alert. Okay, this is what we're looking for when we're looking through this chapter. And as you go through, and I just turned to the beginning of the integumentary chapter, it's got all of these big anatomy plates. And this is what you want to have set in your brain. You don't have to memorize everything, because even in the CPT book, the one by the AMA that we all have to use for testing purposes, it has anatomy plates in it. Now, I have recommended previously to look through the entire CPT book and flip and look at each and every single page. Read some of the coding tips throughout, because they do have coding tips in there. And that's the thing, guys. Please hear me when I say this. When you are looking through the CPT manual, this is going to get you familiar with the book. These are open book tests, and yet people will go in there and start panicking. Why? Because, oh, they say, well, I'm a nervous test taker. No, you're panicking because you did not look through the book like you were supposed to. You did not probably study like you were supposed to. And let's just be honest here, because you need to be honest with yourself about what happened. If you are saying, well, no, I always get nervous. No, you don't get nervous. If you feel confident, it's going to be because you were studying with your book and you were practicing. But looking through the book is going to help you so much to know where everything is. You won't have to mess with any silly tabs. You will not have to circle, highlight, write, or do any of those things, because the CPT manual is written by doctors and scholars who already know everything. All you have to do is practice reading it and practice looking at it, so that way you know where everything is at. There's a lot of people who will tell me when I talk about the appendixes in the CPT manual, oh, I didn't know that was back there. How long have you been studying? Oh, well, I didn't know that the modifiers were in the front of the book, like the list of them, and I didn't know that the appendix had the explanation of them. This is what is going to help you to learn this stuff, all right? And so when you incorporate that with working in the workbook, and even if you're doing a chapter at a time, right? And you go to that chapter first in the CPT manual and you look at every single page in that chapter, and then you do the workbook and you read the questions first, and then you go into it, that's going to set you up for success, because you will solidly have a foundation of, okay, well, I know where everything is at right here, where I've got to look. And when it comes to looking at the book, I have a direction where to go. I'm working on a chapter at a time. I am going to look at the CPT manual, and I'm going to marry these two, so that way when I'm working my 3.5 hours per day for 5 days, and then my 2.5 hours on the weekend, it's going to be productive. I know exactly what I'm going to do, and I can do not just only one subject, I can work on another subject as well. And that other subject may be reading the coding guidelines. It may be working with your ICD-10-CM. It may be any of one of those things. It may be working with your knowledge of regulatory and compliance by going to the CMS website and looking for the frequently asked questions. You can find that by going to the little spy box. And anything that you want to know about anything that when it comes to regulatory compliance, like HIPAA and, you know, OIG and any of those things, it's all going to be there. And you can always Google. You can always Google, guys. There's no sense in saying, well, where's the link? Where's the link? When you guys have the same access to the internet and to Google as I do, okay? And so I'm telling you, these are the things that you need to do. And as medical coders, it is our responsibility to do our research. It is our responsibility to know where to find things. And we have to be able to find these things on our own. Because when you get out in the real world, if you're a student, and this is not to scare you, it is to prepare you. A lot of these veteran coders are not going to want to hold your hand and not going to want to spoon feed you this stuff, because they want you and they expect you to already understand. When I got here to my forever home, you know, the first thing that my boss taught me at the time, the first thing she told me when we were doing our orientation was, this is not a training camp. I expect you to know where to find your resources. And I expect you to do your research before you come and ask me anything. And I'm like, ma'am, yes, ma'am. But yeah, that was the way she was. And that was how I came up in the industry, was, okay, I've got to do my research. And I did. And do I get stuck on questions? Sure. Do I learn how to say, okay, look, this is what I looked up first, and this doesn't make sense. It still doesn't make sense, or this is conflicting. Help me. Then that makes sense, and that's okay. But For all of you that are just looking for everything to be like, okay, give me the link, give me the link. No, I'm not, and I won't. Because again, it's hurting you if I do. Because that's just going to get you dependent on, oh, if I ask for the link, then they're just going to give it to me. No, you need to do your research. And I'm telling you exactly what to say into Google, which is whenever you're looking for things about HIPAA, you can Google HIPAA, okay? I'm just saying. So go through those questions in the back, and then you go through the chapter, you read the chapter, and then you answer the questions throughout. You can make notes. You can have a notebook with you, and you could be taking notes and things like that, or things that you want to put into your mind that maybe didn't totally make sense, so that way you can do more research about that later. But don't write in your books. Don't write in your CPT manual, okay? I always recommend that you can always go to these study guides again later, but it's better if you don't write in the book, right? So keep a notebook with you, so that way you can write all your answers. The book can stay good and clean, so that way you don't have to like cover up your answers or anything like that. But that is a good way to do that. And when it comes to things that are like confusing you, like maybe the integumentary system is confusing you because you don't recall the layers, or it's just a lot. You need to have a base understanding first, and then the detail will come later. So if you want to mix it up by incorporating anatomy videos, Crash Course is the number one anatomy one that I recommend. There's a ton of anatomy channels on YouTube, and all you have to do is let your fingers do the walking. But I'm telling you now, the one that I recommend is Crash Course. So please don't ask me which one I recommend. It's not cute. It's not cute when I just told you what it is, you know? So I'm just saying. But with that said, guys, when you incorporate your 3.5 hours per day in 5 days, that's 17.5 hours that you've been studying. 17.5. And then you just have 2.5 hours over the weekend. You could do that on a Saturday, right? And you don't have to do it all in one sitting. Like I said, you don't even have to do this in one sitting. You can study for 30 minutes up to an hour, and then you stop and take a break. You could take a 15-minute break. You can take a 30-minute break if you want to, and then you come right back at it. So that way it's not so overwhelming. The longer hours you put in sitting at one time, the more likely you are to not remember or not be able to recall, because your brain's going to be fatigued. So that's what you don't want to do. You want to be able to have all of this crisp in your mind and be able to recall it. But don't expect yourself to memorize everything, because the more pressure you put on yourself to memorize things, the more you're going to want to resist studying. You should be excited about studying, guys. This time that you spend doing this is uncomfortable. Absolutely, absolutely. Because you will feel like, gosh, do I know anything? You do. You know a lot more than you think you do. But you have to stick with it. And if you do that, then again, you're going to be set up for success. You will be prepared when you're going in for this exam, and it won't be so difficult for you, because you will know exactly where to go, and you've had sufficient practice. Because again, practice, practice, practice. There is no boot camp that you can buy. There is no program. There is no class, no matter what anybody says, that can prepare you if you're not showing up, mentally showing up for that test, or mentally showing up for that class and being prepared, all right? And everybody has different ways of teaching. There's a lot of different things out there to try to help coders and things like that. But some of it is just, it's going to be all on you. And a lot of these programs say this. And whether it is Practicode or, any of these other things. I have my Patreon channel, and Patreon, if you don't know, is a lot like YouTube. And with Patreon, I do puzzles. I have quizzes that I post. I do videos about myself. Because I want to be able to share like things that are going on with me that I don't share here on YouTube. We have a once a month live study hall, which has been fantastic. The last few times we have had such a great crowd, and I love getting the questions, and I love the discussions and everything. And I like when other students are talking to each other, because they know that it's not just them that is going through this, okay? So the minimum pledge for my Patreon channel is $10 per month. You certainly do not have to pledge past a month, but there are, of course, benefits if you sign up for higher levels. You know, you get one-on-one time with me, and you can visit my Patreon website for that. And I will be leaving that link in the description box below. So with that said, guys, take the time to go through one chapter, at least minimum per week, and double up whenever you can. So that way you can make it through in your 4 months, okay? And that's a chapter a week, you know, a little over a chapter a week. And there's going to be a time, again, you're going to have to double up on one of them, but that's okay. It's not anything that you can't handle. You certainly can handle this, especially when you're putting 20 hours per weekend. You're not going to spend 20 hours on one chapter in this CPT book. Oh, no, 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 no. This CPT book, this CPC study guide is only going to be a portion of that 20 hours in a week, okay? Because you can, I mean, if you wanted to, but you certainly should not. You should incorporate other things, the guidelines, reading the guidelines, okay? Or going over HIPAA, or going over the ICD-10 CM exercises and things like that. Whatever you've got going on, those are the things that you can do, all right, to help you to practice. Now, one other thing that I will share with you, justcoding.com. They have a free version on their website for membership, and they have a paid membership. So what they have on there is 5-question coding quizzes, and you can use that to help you to practice, get more practice in. You can cover up the answers if you like, or you can just see, because they all have, it's 5 multiple choice questions, but it's great practice. You can always, again, you can cover up the screen so that way you can try to work these out on your own and then see which answers you come up with, and then it'll tell you if you got it right, but it won't tell you which ones you got wrong, or why the answer was wrong. Okay, so you just have to keep going and practicing again and again, and it is free. So there's a free version and a paid version. That is justcoding.com. Okay, so again, I recommend the free version if you are out there and a student and you are trying to get more practice in. So, and this is not an ad for them, but I think it's a wonderful thing to share with coders, because if, you know, the more materials that we practice with, the better off you'll be. I'm just saying. So with that said, take a chapter a week, guys. Chapter a week in the CPC study guide. And the link will be in the description box below. Take a chapter a week, and then incorporate other things, medical terminology, anatomy, or whatever else you're struggling with. Incorporate that into your study week, all right? But that's one thing that you can do. Take a chapter a week, 2 chapters in a week, and then keep going. If you miss a day, or if you miss some time, or maybe you just didn't get to the chapter in that week, it's okay, guys. It's okay. It doesn't mean that you have to stop. It doesn't mean that you have to give it up. It doesn't mean that it wasn't meant for you. It just means that you got to get back on that horse and keep riding out to that sunset. So that's what you got to do, guys. It's what you have to do, because there's going to be times when you don't feel like it. But in the times when you don't feel like it, you think about your why. You think about what's driving you. Is it the fact that you want to be able to provide for your family, or take, you know, nice vacations, or live in a nice place? Then you got to think about those things, because that's what's going to help drive you through. I'm just saying. So with that said, happy studying, guys. And I will see y'all on the next video. If this video helped you, please like, subscribe, and share, and I'll see y'all again. Bye.